Skip it up and that up. So with DirectX 12 being brought to the Xbox One, will multi-plat developers actually support it? Aaron Pollock from a company called Circle 5 Studios, they're currently working on a game called Primal Carnage Extinction. He shared his thoughts on what will happen with DirectX 12 when it comes to multi-plat games. But the big question to him is whether developers are actually going to use it. This is what he had to say about it. DirectX 12 is always improving, and it's exciting to see how far it's come. The biggest catch with it right now is the support fragmentation with PS4. There are around 20 million PS4s on the market right now, and if a developer pursues DirectX, they're making a calculated decision not to release to that user base. Sure, there's a lot of crossover in that user base, but it's still a pretty big risk for a large-scale production. And he goes on to talk about how exclusives for the Xbox One could take advantage of it, and that's going to be pretty cool, so on and so forth. There's a link to the full article below. I just wanted to focus on what he said about, DirectX 12 and multi-plats for the PS4 and Xbox One. There's a couple things here. There's a couple factors. First off, like I said, Phil Spencer himself said DirectX 12 is not going to be like some super duper special sauce for the Xbox One. The man who is in charge of the Xbox division said it. Okay? I mean, it's not like it's a Xbox hater or it's just someone on YouTube who just wants to talk shit. The man himself said it. He's like, yeah, it'll make things more efficient, but it's not going to be like a night and day difference like you put a brand new graphics card in. Okay, moving on from that, which I have to keep bringing up, and it's funny, the Xbox fanboys love Phil Spencer, but when I bring up that point that he said that DirectX 12 won't be a big deal, they refute him on it. Anyway, so that's a thing. Now, it's funny, too. It's almost like DirectX 12 for the Xbox One is what the cell processor was for the PlayStation 3. Even though I think the cell processor actually was more beneficial when exclusives came out for it, like Uncharted and Killzone. Sony touted the cell processor over and over and over again, but the problem is that it's kind of like what's happened with the PS4 now. The Xbox 360 and the 7th gen had a much bigger install base, so even if developers wanted to utilize the cell processor and do things with the PlayStation 3 that couldn't be done with the 360, they didn't do it because they would cut down, they would have to write the game exclusively for the PlayStation 3. And that would be stupid to them because the Xbox 360 was a system, especially earlier in the 7th gen, that had the bigger install base. So a lot of times the PS3 got the crappier ports due to the fact that, a lot of times developers just used the main processor core of the cell processor and didn't worry about the SPEs. So a lot of times developers said, if you just used the main processor in the PlayStation 3, it was like working with a Pentium 4 processor. So a lot of times you got cut down games from the 360. So multiplats usually were better, at least in the beginning, on the 360. But whatever, you're getting my point. It's almost like now DirectX 12 for the Xbox One is going to be like what the cell processor was for the PlayStation 3. Yeah, okay, it's nice that it's there, but no one's really going to take advantage of it due to the fact that the opposing system, which this time is the PlayStation 4, has a bigger install base, so they're not going to really want to take advantage of the DirectX 12 features because they want to make the game for both the PS4. The developers are going to want to make the game for both the PS4 and Xbox One. But my question to Sony and to the third-party devs is that the hardware inside the PlayStation 4, albeit moderately more powerful or somewhat more powerful, is the same crap that's in the Xbox One. I know that PlayStation uses OpenGL. They don't use DirectX, obviously. They use OpenGL. But couldn't PlayStation make a custom OpenGL API or update the API for the PlayStation and give it DirectX 12-esque features? Since the hardware is virtually identical inside both of these new 8th gen consoles. So would that be a big deal? Like, I don't get it. I could see if they were like, the PlayStation 4 was using a PowerPC based chip from IBM, like, Microsoft did with the 7th gen, the Xbox 360, and the Xbox One was using an Intel-based or an x86 processor, and they were two totally different architectures, and the graphics processor was totally different architecture, so it would be a pain in the ass to do. But this time, they're identical. there's no difference in between the hardware really. So why wouldn't Sony just make a new API, like I said, with DirectX 12 features, and then there you go, problem solved. It's not like the hardware isn't capable of handling DirectX 12 features in the PlayStation 4, so can't they just fix it with software? I don't know. I'm confused. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see if developers, if like the next Call of Duty comes out, and if, Activision and Infinity Ward actually take advantage of DirectX 12, or due to the fact that Sony doesn't have DirectX 12 features in their API, that they'll just keep on going with DirectX 11. We'll have to wait and see, which will be really disappointing, because not only is DirectX 12 not going to be that big of a deal for the Xbox One, it'll suck to see it not being used at all, and for years to come, developers are just going to stick with DirectX 11 tech. We'll have to wait and see what happens.